All right, excellent afternoon to all those who are watching me across the states in Nigeria. And I must say that if Africans don't save Africa, who will? Can an European or an American be more African than an African? Is the question I'm asking right now. And a white man or a person of another race can never, I emphasize, can never have the best interests of Africa more than the black man. Africa is ours, and of course the responsibility to grow and nurture and develop it amidst challenges is the responsibility of Africa. Again, I say welcome to another intro. I think it's time for us to hear what on this day in history has for us, because I can hear Nigerians' voice around the corner. Let's get to hear what historical event that took place today in Nigeria. Stay with me, I'll be right back. All right, sponsors, and when I come back, the main conversation will continue. Stay with me, I'll be right back.
Progress. Ọganiru bụ echiche ndị be anyị. That is why when we travel beyond the land of our birth, we are not afraid to start afresh in search of our glory. Our thirst to succeed fires our passion to build empires made from hard work and determination.
From the east to overseas, the drums of triumph hail our name. This is the sound of progress. Ebube dike, nwoke n'etiti ụmụ nwoke, ịlọghachila n'ebube. Nwoke dịka ọdụm, nnọọ, bịa were ọnọdụ gị n'etiti ndị okenye. This is the life we chose. Enjoy the new taste of progress. Nwafọ tụrụ golọta.
True friendship, it lasts forever. True friendship, a gift we share together. No matter where you are, we're there together. Sharing moments, happiness is when we are together.
Multina, share happiness.
Why is a seat at this table so special? Culinary luxury at its finest. The peak of private dining. A rare fusion of flavors coming together to create one-of-a-kind masterpieces never made before. Be the ultimate host at Echo Hotels. Exclusive new oak table.
All right, many thanks for staying with me. My today's or my topic today rather centers around the COUP in Niger, and of course the challenges poses a lot to us with its extension across the countries within the Sahel. You know, and of course, as we engage in this conversation, I would explore a variety of perspectives from the economic impact of sanctions on Niger to historical and economic ties that binds it within or with Nigeria and other West African countries, and the threats on democracy in Africa as well is something I will be touching on today's episode. And also I will be discussing the role of regional organizations such as ECOWAS in addressing this crisis and the implication of potential economic and of course the diplomatic aspect of it, or of this unfolding situation that we find ourselves, and it will be touching upon the domestic concerns voiced by Nigerians, because there are quite a number of different reactions or perspectives about the challenges that we find ourselves, and of course our priorities amidst the regional challenge. And these are all the conversation I will be having today. But before then, I think it's important for us to take a moment to have the profile of my guest, and the conversation will continue. All right, many thanks for staying with me. And of course, I'm still with Mr. Paul Ejime. We are talking about the Nigerian COUP and how the challenges that it poses to Africa. Sir, with all that we've been sharing thus far, I want to quickly bring to fore, because there are vast relations between Nigeria and Niger, suggesting that the two nations' interconnectedness should play a role in Nigeria's response and the seeking and the trade relations when it comes to war extensions to the northern region of Nigeria are all on the fore right now. And I feel that there are elements of critical consideration. What's your take on this?
So you are right. Niger and Nigerians and Nigerians, they have traditional, historical, and so many connections, affinity, that you find one family having family members on either side of the divide, and it's a very wide border, very long and porous. So even the immigration or customs from both countries are not able to map all the entry points. So movement is more or less unrestricted. That is one. The other one is that it talks about religion. It talks about the fact that these are ancestral relations we're talking about. And on top of that, at the economic and political level, these two countries belong to the Chad Basin Commission, which are working on, Chad used to have the water there used to serve is of economic importance to both countries, and to the point that the two countries even had an agreement over the flow of from the dam, so much so that Niger was asked not to dam his own side of it, so that, because if it did, water can now be, either Nigeria will have flood or there will be no water for generation of electricity. You must have heard about this contract on why Nigeria is now supplying electricity to Niger. So this is the issue that, and this is something that goes into the 60s. And so you cannot wake up one morning and then decide to sever or cut all these ties. And at the same time, whatever happens, they say that in Nigeria, in ECOWAS, when Nigeria has cold, every sneezes, the other neighbors will catch cold. Nigerians' political relations had always been, they call it a concentric circle. That is having about three, layers. One is neighbors, the other one is, ECOWAS, before you now talk about African Union and then the rest of the world. So you cannot tamper with any of this level of relationship and not have consequences. So this is the point that if anything happens in Niger, can create refugee or humanitarian crisis, apart from the casualty that will result from any use of kinetic appliances or military intervention. The humanitarian level, the countries are dealing with internal IDP, internally displaced persons. When this happens, you have refugees flocking all over, and already the two countries are suffering. Nigeria has an economic problem. It has a new president that is still trying to find his feet, or not knowing whether the court decision can overturn things or it will go in his favor. And then in Niger is there. There is also insecurity. There is Boko Haram. Nigeria was relying on some of these neighbors to fight Boko Haram, because they will come and, attack Nigeria and then move into, the neighbors. So you need the cooperation of your neighbors for your security. So these are some of the issues. So let's go on with this conversation, Kike.
For your elaborate submission right there. And with what you've shared thus far, I have two questions for you, because most recent news from Niger says that the military junta has gathered evidence to prosecute the country's disposed President Mohamed Bazoum, and of course the foreign accomplice as well, before the competent nation and international authorities for high treason and undermining the internal and external security of Nigeria. This is getting more tougher, if you ask me, and with all that you've shared thus far, especially when it comes to religion and so many things. I would like your comment on this. This is my first question. And my second question to you, because of time, is the fact that I feel that some say a greater force is needed because of the two successive coups in Mali, now ruled by a military regime, while a recent COUP is in Burkina Faso has also brought a 35-year-old army captain to power. Should ECOWAS be adopting more of military force, so to speak, and imposition of sanctions, or the table of dialogue should be what we should be talking about, or even the combination of both? What's your take on this, sir?
Okay, let's go into the issue of what the junta appears to be doing, because they appear to be a step or two ahead of ECOWAS, and that is a shame. What they're saying now is that President Bazoum, that they have in their custody, that they found evidence to charge him with for high treason. I think the idea is to actually retire Bazoum from politics. That when they're able to finish with him, it's probably that he will not be considered to continue. So those who are talking for his reinstatement, they are now, these military guys are saying, no, we cannot have somebody that the army cannot trust, and then who has corruption or treason check is hanging on his neck. I think that is it's a way they are clever. They are being clever in that. But you also see that ECOWAS has responded to say no, condemning these charges, calling it, that it runs against the grain of what was seen as the two sides getting into embracing diplomatic or peaceful resolution. So they are saying that this is not a good fit. That is what ECOWAS is doing. I remember that ECOWAS has talked about, let's go back to the use of force that ECOWAS has talked about. ECOWAS did not just talk about using this force now. I think what happened is that it found itself become almost matters. Usually what ECOWAS does is that there's a committee of peace and mediation. They will meet and of committee. After that, they will make recommendation to Chief of Defense Staff. And after the Chief of Defense Staff would have met, before they now escalate issues to the heads of state. But what happened in the case of the heads of state met first and then imposed sanctions and then asked the Chief of Defense Staff to come and meet. So it was about more like putting the cart before the horse. But let's not actually play with what is happening. That democracy is on the decline. If military adventurers are allowed to take over, only God knows. Today they are now 4. Before you know it, the 15 member countries of ECOWAS will be counting on their, fingers how many will now are being run with democratic system. I think that is the worry for ECOWAS. But what has muddied the waters is the pressure and stampede, that Western countries are bringing. For instance, France, the former colonial power, has so much interest and control over its former colonies. And in the case of Niger, it has military base there. The U.S. has military base where, in fact, the largest in West Africa, where it has its drones that it uses for intelligence gathering. So both of them have between 2,000 to 5,000, 2,000 to 3,000 troops in Niger, and at the same time, Niger has the natural resources like uranium, which France is exploiting to make it for about the power supply of 60% for its citizens. When Niger citizens of about 60 million cannot access, 80% of them live in darkness. These are some of the contradictions and the hypocrisy that has beclouded, this kind of things happening in. Niger is one of the, if not it will be one of the poorest countries in the world. Yet has these prized natural resources. Right. So what is happening? The population, they are not feeling it. Only a handful of those who are working in cohorts with foreign powers like France or the US. And at the same time, Niger is a friend of under both Bazoum and his predecessor, Isufu. The allies of these foreign powers, because they are helping them.
Mr. Paul, if you can hear me, I'm sorry I have to interrupt your line of thought, but quickly, I want to go on a break and the conversation will continue. Stay with me.
We started our journey over 7 years ago, connecting travelers to their favorite destinations.
Since then, we have revolutionized how we want our passengers to feel while flying.
That is why we've introduced our brand new Embraer 195 E2 aircraft. We are on a mission to add new destinations to our ever-increasing fleet.
Our Boeing 777 will take you on an international journey. Mumbai, Guangzhou, London, Johannesburg.
And now, Airpeace is adding a new destination.
On the 1st of March, Airpeace will begin a new adventure to a brand new destination. Join us as we celebrate our first flight to Dubai International Airport.
Airpeace flies you from all our domestic routes to Dubai from Lagos at no additional cost.
True friendship, it lasts forever. True friendship, a gift we share together. No matter where you are, we're there together. Sharing moments, happiness is when we are together.
Multina, share happiness.
Progress. It is like the tireless rise of the sun, eager for day to break, so that it can take on the world. And that is why, when we travel beyond the land of our birth, we are not afraid to start afresh in search of our glory.
This is the sound of progress. Ebubedike, nwanne bụ nwanne, nwoke n'etiti ụmụ nwoke, ịlọghachila n'ebube. Enjoy the new taste of progress.
With all that you've shared thus far, you know, I just want to say I'm glad that you've thrown a light on so many things. I wish I can ask that, do you think that ECOWAS is guilty of bias in the situation that we found ourselves, especially when it comes to lack of strategy and proactiveness from ECOWAS? But putting that aside, let me quickly use this opportunity to open my phone lines. Remember that you can be part of this conversation by calling the studio number 080 9884400, and you can be part of this conversation by calling the studio number. And remember that we've been talking about the ongoing discussion that revolves around the COUP situation in Niger, and of course the complexity it presents. Compassing with the economic areas of sanctions on Niger, and as well as historical, cultural, and religious bonds that unite our nations. You know, additionally, I'm considering the role of regional bodies like ECOWAS in managing the crisis and on the vast wealth of experience in international relations and of course on global affairs. I think the uranium, you know, and the 7th largest deposit in the world as well. But it is also a poor country that depends on about $20 billion worth of international aid per annum. So I must ask you, sir, how does Niger deal with such dilemma at hand?
Yes, like I was saying, it is what happens is that the foreign powers, that is what you call it geopolitics. They are now playing. Remember that China and Russia are waiting in the wings, you know, the Wagner issue. But let's not exaggerate those, Russia and whatever, and see what has been, even without Russia or Wagner, how has the former colonial powers related with Africa. That is the issue. And that's why you find that many of the these coups are happening in former French colonies, the foreign countries. And what it shows is that the population, they are getting frustrated and disenchanted with France. The way France has been because France controls their economy and therefore controls their life. The money they make, they are deposited in French treasury, and then they go there to borrow it with interest. You know, and so life has become so, they cannot think independently. No thanks to their leaders. Of course, you will say France is on his own, is pursuing his own national interest. It is the African leaders that are the ones to blame, because they say the rats at home, that is the rat that will invite the one in the bush to say, this is where you have food, and then they begin to ravage. So that is what is happening. It is not only Chad, it's not only Niger, it cuts across the former French colony. So France is a suspect in what is happening. And then African leaders, they are not governing according to, you know, the promise they make. At times, some of them are corrupt. They rig elections. They go for third-term elongation, and they abuse human rights. You know, it amounts to abuse of human rights if a country can produce something like uranium and cannot benefit from it. Those responsible must you know, you have to demand accountability from them. And that is what is happening. So that is why ECOWAS must look at it and not just see the symptom. Military incursion is a symptom of the larger problem that is facing some of these countries. Of course, you cannot remove the fact that there are some of these adventurers, the military men, are also the ones to test power. But it is the civilians, the politicians, that are creating the opportunity for them. That is my reading. So until and unless African and these African countries, or a country like Niger, is governed under, whether you call it democracy or whatever, but let the people see the benefit, good governance. Good governance that will bring food on the table. Good governance that will bring access to education, access to water, access to medical services, and so on, and then employment. The youths are unemployed. That's why you find some of them dying in the Sahara Desert or in the Mediterranean Sea, because they want to cross, they want to go and look for what they call better life. So do you also know that Niger is being paid to stop the migration of African, maybe West Africans from going to Europe? Niger is collecting money for that from EU. So these are the complications and then the hypocrisy that you find. And you were talking about why the bias. The bias or inconsistency comes at the fact that, for instance, there has all the, in Chad, Chad is not in West Africa, it belongs to different Central Africa, but is the leader, Eastern Habri, Idris Deby, was killed by rebels of Chad in 2021. And his son, who is a military man, seized power. That is also a coup, because he did not follow the constitution. So if ECOWAS is saying we are using, seizing power through changing government through unconstitutional means, Chad has the son of Debbie had also done that. But you know what? He's receiving celebrity reception from both the AU and then ECOWAS. In fact, ECOWAS, he went to Niger on behalf of ECOWAS and Nigerian president. And then you say, is it one rule for one set of coup makers and another one for the others? Or what about the leaders that create the environment for the military to take over? So these are some of the issues. But everybody is advising the use of military rule does not have popular support because of the consequences, the catastrophic consequences that are bound to follow. But at the same time, ECOWAS is just holding it out, I believe, just to make sure to tell these people that we have had more than enough coup. Let us, I think both parties can come and negotiate. From the feelers from Niamey is that the regime there, they are ready to talk with ECOWAS. I think ECOWAS should seize that opportunity, and then the military should also not be grandstanding. They cannot take on the whole world if it comes to using force.
Elaborate submission right there, and of course your suggestion. But quickly, because we are running out of time, I have two questions for you, because with all that you've shared, we see that the Russians playing ally and support with war-threatening regions in Africa to dispose the US, the UK, and Europe in those regions. And in the long and short term, is it a profitable relation that these African countries should rely on, and what are the implications if they do? That's my first question to you, sir. And my second question is that Nigerian billionaire businessman and philanthropist, Abdul Rabiu, says that Nigeria and Africa as a whole, import tons of wheat from Ukraine and Russia. Last year alone, that they imported about 55 million tons of wheat. We should, we need, I think that's the word, we need to find local solutions to our local problems from within Africa, if you ask me. African leaders have realized this, but how far are we away from actualizing the self-sufficiency and not depending on the West and international agencies? That's your perspective, or what's your submission on these two questions, sir?
$1 million question, but it can also be answered in simple terms. But let me begin with what you talked about, changing Europe or America with Russia or China. That is not the solution. The fact that you have to find Africa is not zero poor. Africa can sustain itself if only it can be better managed. It is not poor, but it's poorly managed. It has been impoverished by the bad governance system that the political leaders have always introduced. The disposition of the politicians. They are the ones causing that have put Africa in where it is. So they have to change their ways. Okay? For instance, this idea of 50 or so, 40 African leaders trooping to one country, whether it's in China or in Japan, in America, in France, to go and meet one leader. That does not show, it's shameful. Because these are counterparts, they're supposed to be equals. So why are they, Africa, this begging bowl policy cannot survive? Because we know that if the resources of Africa are well managed, Africa will not be in this position that it take its own destiny in its own hands. That is what is happening, and that's what should happen. And then you mentioned it. It's not rocket science. It can be done. Look at Africa. There is no place where you cannot find expertise. African expertise in the whole world. Why can't they pull it together? If you are talking about Nigeria alone, the skilled workers or experts in Nigeria from Nigeria are sustaining the economies of, or even science institutions of many countries. Is it the US? Is it in the UK? Everywhere. Why can't these resources, this wasting and wasted be harnessed? Human capital. And then what is there? To bring the strategic thinking into how Africa is governed. But it cannot happen when you still have the crop of leaders who are there, who are selfish, who are gluttonous, who are greedy, who are, self-serving. They are serving themselves and not the population. So until there is that reorientation to recognize that nobody can, you started with it, nobody outside can love you, can love Africa more than Africans themselves. So Africa has to take its own destiny by its own hands.
Many thanks again for that submission. I think this might be my last question to you because of time, and I wish I can touch about the African and the Pan-Africanism in us, because I feel that the internal capacity or development for us to pursue this self-reliance challenges lies on us, like you said. But moving away from that, the occurrence of the Niger COUP stamps the importance of strong democracy, good governance, and responsible leadership in Africa to prevent situations like this. Beyond ECOWAS, organizations of Africa like AU, I don't know what to say now. What should they be doing in terms of actions and policies to proactively deal with the threats against democracy that may take us back as 50 years or more? Because this is really scary right now, if you ask me.
So, an organization is only as strong or as weak as its members. These members of ECOWAS or AU, they are all weak. They are coming from a position of weakness. Any negotiation that they undertake, they are going begging, and that is why there is no unity. And that's why they are dividing them, divide and rule. So one country will come and enter into, a bilateral agreement, and you see the mechanism is dying or has even died. It died with our, early leaders. Though AU was better than, if you ask me, than what the African Union is doing now, without people like Gaddafi that was killed by NATO in collaboration with America and then France. They killed him in 2011 because he wanted to bring this to encourage Pan-Africanism. Of course, he has his own faults, but Africa cannot, no African country can go it alone. So unity, if they move with one voice, with common strategy, they are likely to achieve more than going it alone. But that is why when they are not united, when they cannot even give proper leadership at home, you don't expect them to go and do it at international, intergovernmental level. Because you cannot give what you don't have.
Absolutely,
so
we cannot give what we do not have.
Dilemma.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been an interesting time with you on Real Talk with Kike, and I must say many thanks for creating time doing at your hand where you are. I don't want to put out your location at the moment, but thank you so much for being a part of this conversation on the issues that affect us all in Nigeria. I think this is where I draw the curtains of the show. Till I come your way next week, remember to be kind to one another and put a smile on somebody's face. Bye for now.